So welcome back to Night Flight. This is I'm Judith Quober, and Dr. Stefan Becker is my guest today. He has written a book, Leaving for the Source of Life. That is the title. And we are going to talk about it, what inspired him to write it, and what it is all about. So, Stefan, welcome. Welcome to
Thank
Night
you very
Flight.
much. Thank you.
So, Stefan, you contacted me quite a while ago via BitChute, if memory serves. And that was after you watched my interview with Shmuel Asher, Dr. Shmuel Asher.
That's
Okay,
correct.
that's correct. So tell us, it's your first time here on this channel, so tell us a little bit about it. You have a doctorate in theology. So what sparked your interest in that field?
Right. So basically, it goes back to my childhood. I was always a very curious person. So they told me, even as a little child, I asked everybody who was near me. In German, there is the expression "ein Loch in den Bauch," so it goes to the center of everybody. And for many of my people around, it was too much. And so I tried to go my way ahead and find sources to get to know what's this life all about, you know? And the big questions: who am I, and where do I come from? And so finally you end up in religion, because that's the field where you get the big questions and especially the answers. And sometimes the questions are suppressed, or you don't get the right questions. They're already formatted or fabricated. So I was I was grown up in the church, in the Reformed Swiss church. And so I grew up in the tradition of the Christian Bible reading and many of the dogmas. I adapted very early on. I felt, well, there must be a creator, you know. So I experienced myself as a part in this creation, and the feeling was very strong. There must be a creator, and I tried to find the way to get to a relationship with him, or to get to know more about him and himself. So I had many interesting men and women who were an important part in my life. There's especially one woman. She was a midwife and was born in 1888. So she could give me some insight how life was before all this craziness, like the technological craziness, is unfolded. And she was the midwife in Ethiopia. It's Abyssinia, I don't know in English. At that time, it was Abyssinia, and she delivered the prince in Ethiopia and told many, many fascinating stories. And she was very much knowledgeable with herbs and how to support your own health, and also the spiritual side. So it was a very interesting woman, very humorous and outgoing. And I remember one day, I was maybe 10 years old. I asked her, after I was very sick, maybe a flu, and I asked her, how is it about the animals? What do they do? Because my parents had to go to the drugstore, or
Yeah.
yeah, to get pills and whatever to alleviate the sickness. And then she told me, well, the animals, they just sniff around and they take the right herbs and plants, and they get better. And then I figured something must be wrong. So we have to pay to get all we need, and the animals they just can't take it, and they have the ability to find it, you know. And this was like a shatter. My whole world's view shattered at that time already. something must be totally wrong in this world. And later on, maybe 2 years, a couple of years later, I realized, well, my parents, they have to pay taxes, but we are the only beings who have to pay to live on this planet. And all other beings, animals, they just live, you know? And so that was something it shook me to the core, you know? I tried to find out what's the reason. Why is this world so strange? And so many things happened. The reason why I got to theology was when I was a teenager, was 15. And my parents, they were leading like a Studentenheim, that's like a home for students in Zurich. And one time, it's like in 1980, there was a pastor from South Africa who came over to Zurich to write a doctoral thesis. And back home, he had a church with colored. I guess you know the situation there when you have the blacks and the whites and the colors are in between, and they had a lot of tension to deal with. And to me, he was the first Christian, so to speak, who was, apart from this midwife, who was very he was honest intellectually as well as personally. From it was like glaubwürdig, it was believable, it was authentic. And so I could ask him all the questions I had, and he wasn't the guy who just told me it's like this and this. He tried to give me hints to go further on my search. And this inspired me finally to pick up the studies in theology. First, I wanted to become a doctor, a physician, and that didn't work out. I'm glad. Otherwise, you can say, well, the studies in theology is also a pretty dangerous and difficult thing because you can get lost easily. But that's so the background why I went into theology. I tried to, well, at that time I figured, well, you get sometime you get the answers, and I was very much guided by my brain, you know. So although I liked sports and everything, climbing, but I was very much confined to my brain. And that's the whole story until now, which changed very much. Maybe we can go into more detail, but yeah. So,
what was your dissertation about?
So to get the best overview, you deal with systematic theology. It's like everything comes together: the philosophy, history, the biblical exegesis, and then finally you try to put everything together and look how the scholars before you did that. And so I came across Karl Barth. He is a Swiss theologian, and you can say he was one of the most prominent theologians in the first half of the last century. He died in 1968. Paul Tillich is one of his contrahents. He was in the States afterwards, so maybe some of your listeners heard the name. And he was a very amazing man. He was, of course, he didn't follow the normal academic career. He was in a parish on the countryside in a little village, and he began to write about the letter of Paul to the Romans. And this was like a revolution. He didn't even have a doctorate, and that sparked his career. And finally, he was one of the most influential theologians. And my thesis was the relationship between knowledge and prayer. And the subtitle had to do with it's like translated in understandable terms, how the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, like the dimension you can't grasp with conceptions and with methods, how this influences your way or your search of knowledge. And the most important what yielded from that was the insight. You always to get to know the Most High and the secret of the world, you have to do this in an open attitude, like with empty hands. Always try to start from the beginning, like I quoted Karl Barth in my book. You always have to be ready to put everything aside. You try to hold on all your beliefs and be open now. And this is the reason why I always try to, well, I always started anew and finally got the inspiration by Dr. Shmuel Asher, which came after decades of many things I tried out and looked for, sometimes very complicated. A guy you probably know is Ken Wilber. He is a famous philosopher and spiritual teacher in the States, and is famous for his integral institute or his integral spirituality. Yeah, it sounds very good and it's very aloof, so to speak, and it didn't work with me. Okay. Because I couldn't, like I say, put my feet on the ground and still live it. So like today, what I do as often as I can, I put out my shoes and walk just on barefoot in the forest, on the wherever I am. And so to be grounded is very important to me, and not just go upwards, but also put your roots down in the ground. This is, and I found this at Shmuel Asher's approach to the questions I had, to the Bible especially, because I came to a point where I just threw everything away, so to speak, and I dived into Zen Buddhism for a while, and then took up the deep reflection and meditation with the Vedic tradition, like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, Upanishads, and so forth. Very interesting, very fulfilling, but I realized it's not. These are not my roots, and it is very important to go back to your roots and try to build up on your own roots. It's like I use a picture sometimes. You can't take a fir tree from the mountains and put it somewhere in the jungle. It doesn't work. And that's how I felt always, like uprooted, and yeah, something was missing. And this way, I would say I didn't get the answer now, but like I'm not in the position to say, well, now God is here or here, but I would say I know the direction, and now it's not something just in my head, but it's in my heart again, like it was as a child, So that's the whole story. And I think many make the experience as a child. You have so many intuitive insights or feelings, and they get covered by so many things. And it's a whole lot of work to unpack all these layers and go back to the origin. That's why I called it in the subtitle of the longing for the origin. And I believe that like the longing is a very basic character of human beings.
Yeah. When you said go back to your roots, here you live in Switzerland, is that correct? So here, Germany, of course, our roots are not Christian. Definitely not. And yeah, of course, I mean, that came later on in history.
Mhm.
And so did you ever consider that our roots are more in, yeah, I would say polytheism?
Mhm. When you're hinting at Germany, both my parents come from Germany and they went to Switzerland very early on. So I had, from childhood, I had to deal with the whole difficult situation. What's it about the roots uh, in a Germanic background? And I know if you go back in pre-Christian era, you have the different gods and like Odin, Wotan, and so forth. Um, it didn't matter a long time. It wasn't I would just say it wasn't a topic for me for a long time. But
Mhm.
then when I was in crisis mode, so to speak, I came this Asatru movement. Maybe you've heard of that, which very much appealed to me. They try to go back to the pagan roots, you know.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I was in the Vedic tradition, and something very interesting struck me that there's many parallels, you know, between the Vedic. They have many gods, however you conceive them, but beings who are not visible but influential in our world, as well as in the pagan tradition, like the Celtic tradition. And it's like it's like an understanding that our three-dimensional life, the material world, is an expression of a much bigger reality. And there are beings who are benevolent and try to foster life and the will to live in every being, and there are beings who suppress that. That's a fact. I made these experiences, so if you want to call them spiritual experiences, where I encountered those beings, some of those beings. Couldn't name them.
Can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that?
Um, that was um, in the phase when I tried to go to the roots, like what's really going on? So is this all an illusion, or is something underneath it which which is not affected by corruption and all this mess we have in this world? And in this phase of my life, it's probably 8 years ago, so yeah, more or less. Um, I woke up early in the morning and felt the presence of a being, and this being was like cursing at me. I heard it very loud. It's like the most awful curses you can imagine. And pretty much very soon I realized um, this is a being who is crossing the borders. And that was also a theme in this. I realized many borders in which are legitimate and necessary in my life, I didn't respect myself, you know. And at that time, in this moment, I said, well, what are you doing here? Just leave. You are not supposed to be here.
Mhm.
And it was gone. It was so powerful, you know. And at the same time, I lost I mean, it's like you can imagine some images of monsters. It felt
Mhm.
like that, you know. But I just realized this being has not the right to infiltrate into my life. And the moment I was decisive and said, no, you are not supposed to be here, it left.
Mhm.
I still was pretty much, how do you say?
Shaken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shaken, right?
Yeah, but I think that is important for everybody that, you know, if you are decisive, there's no need, I don't mean it in a literal way, to pee your pants when things like that happen. Just be decisive and tell the entity to hit the rock.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like I'm very fond of your interviews with Eve Lorgan. I came across her long before you, and that was also experiences I made, like with this how did she call it, the love bite.
Ah, yeah.
You know, the
alien love bite.
Alien love bite, right? Right. And I was already open to this dimension, and she cleared many things for me, how to like break it down into your own life, what's going on. And to come back to going back to the roots, when you look at the work of Shmuel Asher, he's somebody who is down to earth and also very knowledgeable in Hebrew. I learned Hebrew at the university, but of course that's very, very little compared to his capabilities, how he grew up with his family and rabbis and so forth. And he opened, like, also from the language, I could go back to the Hebrew and see how these different entities, like many times you read in English, Lord, you know, in the
Yeah.
Bible, Lord.
They slapped
But
the word
behind that,
Lord
there are
all
so many,
over it.
it's like Jehovah, Yah, Elohim, Adonai, there are so many names behind it. And even if it says Elohim or God, you know, or master, whatever, you never know. Yeah, which God is behind it? I mean, there are different, like the concept of different gods is very important. For me, there is just one, or ultimately there is only one, the Most High. But in our reality, there are many, many different beings who try to behave like little gods, you know, and give the impression that they are the only one. And that's a very difficult process to differentiate between those gods with a small g and the Most High with a big G. It's not so easy.
Yeah.
And
I see the Elohim really as a plural, and the majestic plural, that explanation does not fly with me.
well, I mean, in the end, it doesn't matter. I mean, it depends on the context where you put it, but and it also influences, like if you take the first creation story in the Bible where the Elohim are mentioned. I guess you are alluding to that. Of course, you can, if you take this as Elohim plural, different gods who are creating their own game, there's a different context than if you take the Most High, which also is, I mean, this is for me, this is no question. It's a valid possibility in Hebrew, of course. Elohim as a plural majestic, or pluralis majestatis, and in this case, you have a creation when you follow this story, where there is a possibility to choose between good and evil, like light and dark. And for me, that's one of the most important notions to ponder, because if this possibility is not given, we are just captured in a bubble, like in a rose bubble. But in this case, the creation is able to like to fall apart. So we can choose in this creation which way to go. And apparently we live in a place where both possibilities are prominent or visible. And the bad one, I would say, is most prominent, you know. And so there are like many questions. You know, well, how did we get here? I mean, nobody wants a life like that. And if you just recently read again Schopenhauer, he's a very interesting and inspiring philosopher. He says, when I look at the human life, the average human life, it's just appalling, you know. It's just they go about their business, and sometimes a little joy they can have, but most of it is suffering and dullness and emptiness. So what's it all about, you know? And I think this, like the question Shmuel Asher posed, or the term which everything is subsumed, is the everlasting agreement. Maybe you remember talking with him about that. And there it's all about the most fundamental principle of being. No matter if you're a material or a spiritual being, that you respect the life and the will to live of every being.
Yeah.
No?
Okay. So for the audience, we cannot assume, because the last couple of years, yeah, many new subscribers came on board. So my interview with Shmuel Asher, you have to scroll down way back. I guess I did it in 2019. So it has been a while.
But it's
And
easy to find. It's like the Noahide Law is the title, which he delved in. And after that, he expanded on the everlasting agreement. Right. Shall I say a little bit to that?
Yeah, of course. I was just, before we do that, going into the everlasting agreement, your book has the title Leaving for Source of Life. Would you say that you have found it, and how did you arrive at that conclusion?
Very good question. I would like to explain it with an allegory. I remember vividly when I was 5 years old, we were somewhere in the Alps, Adelboden in the Swiss Alps. I was standing there, little child, and I looked up the mountain peak. And all of a sudden, there was a feeling, I want to go up there, you know? It was so physical. I remember it. It was like yesterday. And so it came about after years and years. I got older. I really was able to learn how to climb mountains and get up to over 4,000 meters, like the highest mountains in Switzerland and in the Alps. And this is like an allegory. And I always try to grasp this power. What's it all about? It's just crazy. Why should I, as a little human being, as a child, want to go up to this mountain peak? It doesn't make sense, you know. Maybe you have a nice view, of course, but it's more, something more behind it. And now I came to the conclusion, this is like it's like a mirror of a spiritual longing, that there's a goal which is now unreachable, but this is my destination. That's where I come from, you know. It's like this strong feeling. I have to go back, the feeling. And with, I have to say, not just with like the impulses by Dr. Asher, but before that, already also in the Vedic tradition, there were moments where I felt, well, I can differentiate between my own feelings, my thoughts, and many different, like, you know, the term egregores or tulpas, which is very real. When many,
Yeah, of course they are real.
it's very real. And I can differentiate between that and the presence of the Most High. And this is not something, it's like when I think back on the climbing tours on the high mountain tops, you are there just for a few minutes. You prepare like months and months, and then you climb up for hours and hours. But the peak experience lasts only a few minutes. And then you have to go back. And you have to be very careful when you go back, you know. You can't just say, oh, it's now I'm there and oh, happy doodle dandy. And going back, you can find very, very difficult situations. One time when we came back, we found somebody who died, you know. The helicopters came and a helicopter came and tried to pick the body up. So it's a very mixed feeling, and you can't hold on to the peak experience. And that's how I see it today. I'm convinced I found like the it's like an inner compass in which way to go, but I'm not there yet, you know. I believe that I won't reach the goal in this life. Some call it enlightenment. I believe that's also, how would you say, a fallacy. This life is always changing. You go up, you go down. You never reach the point where everything is fulfilled. It just doesn't work. I've never met somebody who could like show it in a plausible way. So for me, it's a direction, and I have to say, I realize if I observe myself, since I'm living the everlasting agreement, like the way to respect life, the whole perception of the world has changed. It's really amazing. Like I have antennas for things which I didn't have before. I'm much more moved by like the fate of some little animal which I overlooked before, you know. Or I can perceive feelings of somebody in front of me. I have a deeper conversation, and I'm much more keen on what's going on. And to me, that's a proof I'm on the right way.
Okay. So in other words, you wouldn't say, I've got it, I found it, him, she, whatever. And but you feel you have the correct roadmap.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. I also want to say, it's something you bring up sometimes. It's the whole savior complex, you know. As long as you're looking for somebody to come and bring you the whatever enlightenment, the big gift, you're not on your way. You're just following some idea, some I don't know what. And if you look at the Bible, all these messengers who try to talk to their people in their time, they didn't say, I am the one, you know? And even Jesus, he didn't say, I am the one. He said, hey, come, turn back from your wrong direction and consider where you're coming from, and then you find the right way. And that's very important. Even now, I mean, we are living in so crazy times that some apocalyptic messianic concepts they come up, and I'm not sure in the US, probably more than in Europe, but even in the political arena, I mean, some years ago I was also in that camp that maybe if some good leader comes around, then everything gets better. And now I'm at the point, no, forget it.
Yeah, we are still, yeah, we are still in a very childlike state of mind.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, of course, it's if you have people in leadership who make good decisions, that are based in common sense. Of course, it makes a difference. As if you have somebody that is completely driven by ideology, and that ideology tops everything, even common sense, and even prove that it cannot work because of ABC. So, but of course, we have been for 26,000 years in the age of Pisces, meaning I believe. Yeah, that has been the energy of Pisces. Now we are shifting into Aquarius, which has the energy I know. So it is probably not very surprising that after 26,000 years, people are so wrapped up into savior programs still, unfortunately. But I really think we have to drop that because it keeps us spiritually and mentally as a toddler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
Always looking for somebody who is going to save the day for you while you are leaning back and munching on some popcorn, whatever.
And it's funny if you think about it. I mean, when I studied theology, we went into the apocalyptic scriptures, and now we know about like the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's very fascinating, which were discovered in 1948 or 47, where you see the whole expectation that this Messiah is coming and will turn everything around, and he will cast the Romans out of Palestine, so to speak. It didn't come about, you know. And that's the only thing you're 100% sure. If you look at history, there were all these expectations, and finally they just dissolved in thin air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even with the so-called political saviors or whatever, we have to come to a point, I think, that's simply my opinion, that where we realize each and every one of us has to contribute, and real change stands and falls with us, not with a party, not with one person. So maybe our savior is your next fellow man.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I just in that direction, I made a very very beautiful experience. Like I gained a new friend some months ago, and she is a physician from Kazakhstan, grew up in the Muslim culture, in the Muslim family, and now she lives in Germany. And in the meantime, after many different experiences, she works as a healer and is she's able to see many things, like how do you say, hellsichtig,
Psychic.
right, psychic, right, psychic. And that was so amazing when we got to know each other better. I realized she had the same compass like me, you know. But she grew up in a totally different setting, and everything was, I mean, she was in the Mongolia, on horses in these yurtas, total fascinating culture. And I felt there's a deep connection, and we didn't need anybody to explain that to us. We just came to it was so obvious, you know. And that's something I think will happen more and more if you're open to that. If you can let loose all these prejudices, which are sometimes pretty hard programmed into our head. And I know what it means. I mean, I had to let go of many programs, and that was hurtful, even to the point that I felt it was quite a while ago when I wrote my dissertation. I felt my heart was bleeding the whole time. It was pretty awful, you know. And maybe that's important for your listeners also. If you feel something's wrong and you want to make a step into a new direction, don't expect it to be over tomorrow. It's a difficult way, and that's also this is also the way how I wrote the book. It's like a spiritual tour guide where you get knowledge, but also my own experience. I tell many episodes how it worked out for me and what could going on in the reader.
Yeah, I totally understand. I had a situation many years ago where I took a new direction, and the imminent result was that my entire social structure, social net, whatever, broke away completely. And the only constant that I had in my life was my job. And that was quite an experience to pick it up from there and build it up again.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, exactly. And I guess, well, there are sometimes there is nobody around who understands you. That's also possible, you know. This puts you on the line.
Yeah. But rather sooner than later, you will find people who do understand. It might feel in the beginning as if you're completely alone, but also that is an illusion.
That's right. Once you send out clear signals, even a signal what you're looking for or what you don't want to be anymore, and this attracts other people who have the same radiance, so to speak.
Yeah.
Let me just I want to just pick up one quote from my book, which I found very important as far as the question of truth and have you found it, and like the whole concept of the absolute. You know, I wrote there, whoever does not have the truth in front of him always has an ideology behind him. So that's the picture, you know. I don't have the truth in my hand. It's I'm going towards it. And we are living in a time where truth is not extant anymore. It's like, well, what truth? Everybody has his truth, you know. And it's like so hilarious if you try to have a deeper conversation. And after a while, you realize they all are stuck with the ideology, everybody, because they are not living in the open. And you can't do that. You have something to be which is carrying you. If it's not the truth, the living truth, it's an ideology. So it was one day it just dropped. And for me, it's a very good picture, like to try to look into your own life and reflect upon your life. Well, how does it feel? Am I going in an open way towards a goal which is supporting my life, or am I pushed or even how would you say imprisoned in some ideas and concepts? Yeah.
Is there room in your mind that maybe this realm that we all share is not meant to figure out the complexity of the Most High, the Creator, and that I'm not saying the quest itself is futile. That's not what I mean. But maybe we are not meant to figure it out completely. Is there room in your mind for
Oh,
that?
absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely. I I had the illusion a long time I could like ascend with my mind and meditation, whatever, to get the complexity, you know. And then you go into Buddhism, just leave it all. And there is a pretty crazy saying by Mudokan: if you meet Buddha on the way, just hit
kill
him
him.
and
Yeah.
kill him, you know. And okay, that's totally the opposite. And now,
Yeah, because you haven't met him.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, right, right. And now, to me, uh, it's like the wisdom which Jesus refers to. You have to become like a child,
Mm.
you know, not aspire to make something out of you, which is, I don't know, high up in the heavens, but just be a normal, um, upright human being, and with open hands go out into the world, you know. Of
Yeah.
course, with experience, like with a second naivete, like Piaget, the psychologist, explained in a beautiful way. With experience, you have you get a second naivete. How do you say in English?
Naivete.
Naivete, right? Naivete. Yeah, and so I'm not trying to
Yeah.
reach whatever height.
So some people might say children are very easily deceived.
Well, of course, in that sense, when you try to impose your own
Hmm.
belief systems upon them, but if you listen, you know, you can enter a discussion in that you try to defend your position, or you can or you practice the attitude and ask, tell me more.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
don't get it. Can you tell it in a different way? And
Yeah.
this is I made that experience. I mean, I was many years. I thought I knew many. I know many things, of course, and I thought I have to tell the other people all about, I don't know, climate change or migration or whatever hot topic you can pick. You know, try to tell how it really is. Uh, I mean, it's the wrong approach. You know, because first of all, if I have the attitude I know it doesn't work, you know. And secondly, there are so many people they just don't want to hear, so I don't say anything.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
just a waste of time. And that's a pretty I mean recently I read the Gustave Le Bon on mass psychology, and I was really struck. I mean, it was 1895, I believe. And he said the masses are not interested in truth. Just forget it. And if you want to enlighten the masses, you become the victim.
Yeah.
That's what he
Yeah.
said. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nothing you
And
understand.
that's very easy to demonstrate.
Yeah.
Just make a simple social experiment.
Yeah.
Ask people, write down three things that are the most important in your life. Usually you will get health, family, friends, job, something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that is not important.
Hmm.
Yeah, that would be ludicrous to say that.
Hmm.
But what is interesting, what you will hardly find on that list
Hmm.
is truth,
Hmm.
freedom,
Hmm.
and knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Or,
Yeah,
I mean, it's the world how it is. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So we can tell ourselves a lot of funny stories, how we
Hmm.
all value freedom, and
Hmm.
but that little social experiment
Hmm.
usually proves you
Hmm.
wrong.
I'll do that the next time I have the opportunity. That's good. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is the everlasting agreement, Stefan?
The everlasting agreement. This is Asher's translation of the Hebrew word Berit Olam, and it's usually translated in English in covenant, in German Bund, and it suggests, like how I understood it, there is a creator, a God, and he is so loving that he attached himself to this group of people or to these believers, whatever you want to call them. And no matter how they behave, he just attached himself to them, you know. But when you go back, like Asher explains it, the Berit, like the everlasting agreement, is like the most simple rule of life, how life should work and works in itself. Because life, you cannot separate your life from the life of somebody else. It's like maybe that's a very deep insight in meditation. You know, there's sometimes I hear like it's a very interesting thing. I remember it was a student of mine, and he in college, and then he came to me in the breaks, and he said, Mr. Becker, I have to ask you something. Maybe I'm crazy. I went into the forest and I hugged a tree, and then everything electrified, and I was one with the tree, and he was just out of himself. I said, no, you're not crazy. That's a moment of deep reality, you know, how it really is. So the connection with all living.
I would say it's a moment of bliss.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good, perfect word. And so, and once you realize that, you know, it's not just I'm living and I want, then you have to ask yourself, how do I go about with other living beings? And when you look in the Bible, so that's why the first creation story is so important. It says there that God created all the living beings with a living soul, with a breathing soul. It's like a nefesh chaya. It's like the essence of the creator is in these beings, in the animals and the humans themselves. And it's not just like an idea. It's like it's something very bodily and real. I mean, everybody breathes, but is not aware of it. It's an interesting point. How many times in a day are we breathing consciously? You know, we just breathe, but that's our life essence. And this is one of my spiritual practices I try to do most days, with different help of like the prayers to make myself again, to remind myself that my breathing comes from the creator, and I'm a little creator in this realm, no matter how crazy it is. But I'm like just a Leuchtturm. What's in English? Leuchtturm.
I know it, but a light post,
Lighthouse.
lighthouse,
Yeah,
lighthouse. Yeah,
lighthouse, right.
I was so.
Yeah, and this is connected with also with the question, well, what's the name of this creator, so I can find the right way to address him and find the direction. And this is something I was totally surprised and awestruck, how he could show from the Hebrew that the original name is not Jehovah or the Tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He, you know, how it's always portrayed, but it's Eheyeh. You know, it's like in the second book of Moses, Exodus 3. I knew this passage. I also knew the Hebrew, but I overlooked it somehow and didn't realize that there's a big difference. I want to make the story short. I explained it in my book, and you better go back to Shmuel Asher. He has a codex, even a very thick book where he explains it very thoroughly. But one thing I realized one day when I speak this name, and not only with a conscious mind, but also with, I would say, with clean lips. I shouldn't have blood on my lips to speak this name. That's very important. And if I say, yeah, it's my breathing, you know, I breathe in, yeah, it's amazing. And that's the shortest and most powerful prayer I know. It's so close, and it's for everybody the same. The breathing is for everybody the same, for every living being, even for the fish. You know, that's also a thing I realized. Yeah, I hope that was understandable as I jumped around a little bit. But the most important thing is, if I try to understand, like as a systematic theologian, you try to describe the essence of God, you know, and there are many, many different ways to do that, very complicated. But the basic essence is creator. It's the creative force, not the destroying force, you know? So what else do I have to say? It's so simple. And I for a time I studied how do you say jura law. Yeah, right. And there some professor he told us, if you're not able to reduce a topic down to 3 in maximum 7 points, you didn't understand it first, and secondly, you're not clear, you know. You have to reduce it to be very clear. And many theologians, even my colleagues, I cannot listen anymore what they say. It's just awful. It's just gibberish, you say?
Gibberish, yeah.
Gibberish.
Jibber jabber.
Yeah. And to me, the proof is, am I able to explain it to a 4-year-old child?
Yeah.
That's the
But
measurement.
especially when you look at the language, legalese, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh,
That is definitely designed so that you do not understand.
no, no. Yeah, that's another crazy topic. That's right.
Because many times you think you understand the term, but in their world, the term means something completely
Totally
different.
different. Yeah, yeah. Like I think the most crazy one is um, human. I think it's man or human. There's a law dictionary, and it's a monster in our construct because because it has unlimited liability, you know. It's just so powerful.
Yeah, I guess that is from Black's Law
Yeah, that's
Dictionary.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. I remember Jordan Maxwell, he talked about
Oh,
this
really? That's right. Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, with the
Yeah,
monster.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And if you go in with a lawyer,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
then you are not seen as a full adult.
Mm-mm.
But that isn't, they would never tell you that.
Oh
And
no.
I'm not saying never have a lawyer. A good lawyer can do a lot for you, but
Mm-hmm.
the inner workings, really to understand that, yeah, oh my goodness, you can spend a lifetime to decipher it all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that in itself makes me very, very suspicious towards our so-called legal system.
Yeah. It
I
should
mean,
be
I
that way.
get it when people, of one profession that have done that for decades, that they develop some kind of, special language among them. Yeah. But doing that and, imposing that on the public as well, that is, that is deliberate. And in my view, it's evil
Yeah, very much so.
because it is deceptive.
Yeah.
Mm.
With virtue signaling at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Stefan, believe it or not, our first hour is gone.
Okay.
And we will go deeper into the everlasting agreement.
Mhm.
And we see the patrons on the other side.